Man, there's just something about the start of a new season, right? That feeling of anything is possible, every team's got a shot, and we get to see how all the off-season moves they made actually pan out. Like, remember when IPL 2024 kicked off? The energy was so palpable.
Oh, for sure. And that's what makes looking back at the season so interesting, seeing how all the hype and expectations actually played out. And you got a ton of great information on how each team did. Really lets us break down what worked, what didn't, the whole story.
Yeah, exactly. You give us a fantastic overview of the entire season, so now it's all about really diving deep into each team's journey, those key moments that changed things, and how the final standings took shape. It's like we were trying to understand what happened in 2024 so we could see what might happen in IPL 2025. So let's rewind back to the very beginning. Before the first ball was even bowled, what were the big storylines, the things people were talking about before the season started?
Well, the preseason was chaotic as always. Teams were scrambling, trying to tweak their squads based on what they learned the previous year. And the auction. Man, some teams were throwing around serious cash, which kind of showed us what they were prioritizing, which players they thought were going to make a difference. Some teams, it seemed like they were building really well-rounded squads, while others were taking some big gambles on potential.
Yeah, I felt like some teams were going for the safe bets, the known quantities, while others were really hoping to find that one player, that diamond in the rough, who could just turn the whole game around. But then the season actually starts, right? And we pretty quickly saw which of those preseason plans were actually working out on the field.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The first few matches, they really set the tone for the whole season. One thing that stood out right away was how many teams were going all out with aggressive batting. Like across the board, teams were trying to rack up runs as quickly as possible, put up these huge totals. It made for some really exciting cricket, but it also meant the bowlers were under immense pressure to adapt, figure out how to contain these explosive batsmen. Some teams thrived in this new environment, while others, they just couldn't keep up.
And that early separation in the standings, that's always interesting, right? Like who's hot, who's not. And your notes mentioned Kolkata Knight Riders, Sunrisers Hyderabad, and Rajasthan Royals as the teams that really jumped out to an early lead. What was it about their approach that allowed them to, build that momentum so early?
Well, the interesting thing is, it wasn't just one thing. They each had a clear strategy and then they executed it really well. KKR, from what you've shared, it seems like they had a really well-defined game plan and the players who could pull it off. It wasn't just about individual talent, it was about the whole team playing together. A really positive and aggressive mindset from the first ball to the last, whether they were batting, bowling, or fielding. Their opening batsmen were dynamic, setting the tone from the very first over. Then their middle order was solid, keeping the momentum going. And even their lower order, they could come in and score some crucial runs. Plus, their bowling attack was balanced, good pace bowlers and spinners so they could adapt to different situations. That consistency early on, that was huge for them.
Yeah, they look like a really complete team right from the start. And then there's Sunrisers Hyderabad, who honestly, I think a lot of people were unsure about going into the season. And then bam, they just exploded.
Yeah, I know, right? SRH switching to this ultra-aggressive batting style, that was one of the biggest surprises of the whole season. Traditionally, they were known for their bowling, for playing a bit more conservatively with the bat. But in 2024, they just flipped the script. Their opening partnerships became insanely explosive, putting so much pressure on the bowlers right from the get-go. And it wasn't just the openers, their whole middle order was strong, capitalizing on those quick starts. And while their bowling might not have been as dominant as in the past, it was still good enough to defend the big totals they were putting up. It was like they suddenly unlocked this hidden attacking potential and became a team that everyone feared.
It really did seem like an overnight transformation.
Yeah.
And then you have Rajasthan Royals. They might not have had the same flashy style as SRH, but they were just so efficient, like a machine.
Yeah. Calculated efficiency is a great way to put it. RR's strength was in their overall balance. They had good players across their lineup, both batsmen and bowlers who could consistently contribute. And they were amazing in those close nail-biting games. They just knew how to win those tight matches. So they could steadily maintain their position in the top four without needing one superstar to carry them.
Okay, so we've talked about the teams that started strong, but what about the teams that came in with high expectations and then struggled early on? Like Chennai Super Kings, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings. What were their initial challenges?
It's a good reminder that, sometimes the preseason predictions and what actually happens on the field, they don't always match up. CSK, as the defending champions, obviously everyone had high hopes for them. But it seems like they ran into some inconsistency, which is unusual for them. Injuries to some key players messed with their balance, and it felt like they were constantly shuffling their batting order, trying to find the right combination. And one big factor was their lack of a reliable death bowler, someone who could shut things down in those final overs. They've always been known for that in the past, but this season it was a problem. Then there's MI, who have a roster full of stars. But they look surprisingly disjointed in the beginning. Maybe some tactical miscalculations, or maybe they just couldn't find their groove as a team. And PBKS, well, for them, it seemed like the same old story. Moments of brilliance followed by inconsistency, both with the bat and the ball, especially in those crucial death overs.
It really shows how quickly things can change in the IPL. You have all these experts making predictions before the season, and then the games start, and the whole story can flip on its head. Now, let's focus a bit more on those early frontrunners. KKR's dominance, was it all because of their aggressive opening batsmen?
Well, those explosive starts were definitely a big part of their success, but it wasn't the whole story. Their batting depth was incredible. Even if the openers didn't score big, they had a strong middle order that could build an innings, and even their lower order could contribute some valuable runs at the end. That made them so difficult to bowl to, and their bowling, don't forget about that. They had great pace bowlers who could take early wickets, and their spinners were amazing at controlling the middle overs and picking up key wickets. It was truly a team effort all season long.
A true all-around performance, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, SRH's transformation, that sudden shift to ultra-aggressive batting, was that something they planned beforehand, or did it just kind of happen organically as the season went on?
From what I've gathered, it definitely seems like it was a deliberate strategic shift. They moved away from their more conservative batting style from previous years and basically told their top order batsmen to go out and attack from ball one. And it worked brilliantly. Those explosive opening partnerships became their trademark, putting immense pressure on the bowlers right from the start and giving their middle order a great platform to build on. They wanted to dictate the pace of the game, and that's exactly what they did.
It's amazing how a change in mindset can make such a huge difference. And Rajasthan Royals, they weren't always the most exciting team to watch, but they were consistently getting results. That knack for winning close games, is that just luck, or is there something more to it?
There's always some luck involved in those tight finishes, of course. But Ara winning so many close games suggests they had a certain mental toughness and tactical awareness. Their squad was so well balanced, they had players who could handle pressure in different situations, whether it was a batsman needing to steady the innings, an all-rounder contributing runs and wickets, or a bowler staying calm under pressure in the final over. Having reliable players in every role probably played a big part in their success in those close games.
Right, so it was more than just luck. Now let's move on to what you called the mixed bags and the redemption story. Chennai Super Kings, they had a pretty uncharacteristic season. What were the main lessons they could take away from their struggles in 2024?
I think CSK's season shows just how competitive the IPL is and how even the most successful teams can face challenges. They were unusually inconsistent with their batting, struggling to build partnerships and convert good starts into big scores. Injuries to key players definitely hurt them, disrupting their team chemistry. And their bowling attack, it just wasn't as sharp as we've seen in the past, especially in those death overs. They still showed glimpses of their fighting spirit and were in the playoff race for a while, but their struggles showed how important it is to adapt and how even small weaknesses can be exploited in a league this tough.
Yeah, even the smallest details can make a big difference. And then you have Royal Challengers Bangalore, a redemption arc. I like that. What were the keys to their improved performance in 2024?
It seemed like RCB were playing with a lot more unity and purpose this season. Their batting lineup, which has always been packed with talent, got more consistent contributions from everyone, not just the big stars. That made them a much more dangerous batting unit. But the biggest difference was probably their bowling attack, which was much improved. They were more disciplined and effective, and they could actually defend totals better than in previous seasons. They still had some ups and downs, but that better balance between their batting and bowling was huge for them, and it's a big reason why they finished strong and made the playoffs.
This is like they finally figured out how to put it all together, how to use all their talent effectively. Okay, let's talk about the teams that were kind of stuck in the middle of the pack and the teams that ended up at the bottom. Delhi Capitals, Lucknow Super Giants, Gujarat Titans, Punjab Kings, and Mumbai Indians. What were the defining features of their seasons?
This part of the table really shows you how tight the competition is in the IPL. For Delhi Capitals, inconsistency was their biggest issue. They had moments where they looked amazing with both bat and ball, but then they'd have these collapses, and they didn't seem to have that go-to bowler who could consistently take wickets and change the game. Lucknow Supergiants, even though they had a really talented squad, they also struggled to be consistent. They had trouble maintaining momentum with their batting, and their death bowling wasn't great, which meant they couldn't get those crucial wins to reach the top four. Gujarat Titans, as defending champions, it's always tough to stay at that level. Their batting was inconsistent if you take away their key players, and their bowling attack wasn't as strong as the year before. Punjab Kings, well, they kind of did what they usually do. They start strong and then fade away because of inconsistency with both bat and ball, especially towards the end of an innings. And Mumbai Indians, even with all their star players, they had a really disappointing season. Injuries hurt them, they made some questionable tactical decisions, and they just didn't seem to gel as a team. Ending up at the bottom of the table, that was definitely not what anyone expected from them.
It just shows that even having a team full of stars doesn't guarantee you anything. You need consistency, balance, and a bit of luck. Now, as this season went on, the race for the playoffs must have gotten really intense.
Oh, yeah. The intensity definitely ramped up, especially after the halfway point. With so many teams fighting for those playoff spots, net run rate became super important. Every single run, whether you scored it or saved it in the field, could end up being the difference between making the playoffs or not. The last few league matches were so tense, especially the battle for that fourth spot, which, as your information shows, came down to a do-or-die game between RCB and CSK. RCB winning that game was massive because it not only got them into the playoffs, but it also knocked out the defending champs, CSK. Meanwhile, KKR and SRH had already locked up the top two spots, which meant they had that extra chance in the playoffs.
Man, that RCB versus CSK match, I remember that. It was a thriller. And it really set the stage for an exciting playoff round. So let's talk about those knockout games. Qualifier 1 was KKR against SRH, and I think KKR won pretty convincingly, right?
Yeah, Qualifier 1 was a real statement from KKR. SRH, even though they were known for their explosive batting, they couldn't get a really big score thanks to some great bowling from KKR, especially their spinners. And then, even though they lost a couple of early wickets in their chase, KKR's middle order stayed calm and played some smart cricket. They built a crucial partnership and ended up winning with an overt despair. It was the kind of performance that showed everyone they were the team to beat in the playoffs.
It sounds like they were in total control. And then in the eliminator, you had Rajasthan Royals going up against Royal Challengers Bangalore. That must have been a close one.
The eliminator was a classic T20 nail-biter. RR batted first, but RCB's bowlers kept them to a pretty low score. Then RCB started their chase really aggressively, but RR's bowlers fought back hard, taking wickets at just the right times and making things super tense. It went all the way down to the last over, with RCB needing just a few runs to win. Their lower-order batsmen barely held on and got them over the line, knocking RR out of the tournament.
Wow, talk about pressure. And that set up qualifier 2, which was Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Royal Challengers Bangalore. SRH bounced back strong after losing that first qualifier.
They sure did. It seems like they learned from their loss to KKR and went back to their aggressive batting style. They put up a huge score, 198 runs, which was too much for RCB to chase down, even though one of their star batsmen played a great innings. SRH's bowlers also bowled really well, and they earned their spot in the final.
So it all came down to the grand finale, Kolkata Knight Riders versus Sunrisers Hyderabad. It was a fitting end to the season, considering how well both teams had played, and in the end, KKR took home the trophy.
Yeah, it was a well-deserved win for KKR. SRH set a decent target in the final, but KKR's openers came out swinging, looking to score quickly. SRH got a couple of quick wickets, but KKR's middle order, once again, they were just too good. They built some important partnerships and chased down the score without too much trouble in the final over. It was the perfect ending to a dominant season for KKR.
So after all the excitement and drama, here's how the final standings looked for IPL 2024. Kolkata Knight Riders, your champions, with Sunrisers Hyderabad as the runners-up. Royal Challengers Bangalore and Rajasthan Royals rounded out the top 4. And then you had Chennai Super Kings, Delhi Capitals, Lucknow Super Giants, Gujarat Titans, Punjab Kings, and Mumbai Indians. It really was a season of ups and downs, with each team having its own unique story.
Absolutely. The IPL 2024 season was fascinating, with teams trying out different strategies and having varying degrees of success. We saw KKR dominate with a mix of balance and aggression, SRH's surprising transformation with their ultra-attacking batting, and RR's consistent, efficient performances. We also saw the defending champions, CSK, struggle, RCB's impressive turnaround, and a few other teams that had high hopes but ultimately fell short. It just goes to show how dynamic and unpredictable this league can be.
So there you have it, folks. The IPL 2024 season was a roller coaster ride full of tactical battles, incredible individual performances, and constantly shifting team dynamics. This deep dive should give you a solid understanding of how the season played out and what the landscape looks like heading into IPL 2025.
Yeah, and looking at all the changes in team performance and the different approaches we saw in 2024, it really makes you wonder what's going to be the key to success in IPL 2025. Will it still be all about aggressive batting, or will we see bowling make a comeback? Maybe it'll be all about having a well-balanced team that can adapt to anything. It definitely leaves us with some interesting questions to think about.
No doubt about it. And with the next auction coming up and teams already starting to plan for next season, the IPL never stops evolving. We'll be keeping a close eye on all the developments as we get ready for what's sure to be another exciting season.